Namaskar, Adab, and good morning to you all. Let me uh, take out some of the points which have influenced the book. In 1964, Destiny decided that I would be the first Indian Police Service probationer directly allocated to Jammu and Kashmir. But my retirement years since 2001 haven't been spent in J&K because, unlike my civil service batchmates uh, who mostly retired in their allocated cadre states, Article 370 designated my wife Veena and me as outsiders and prohibited us from buying a house in our adopted Madre Watan, that is our motherland. We both related to Bahadur Shah Zafar's lament, कितना है बदनसीब जफर दफन के लिए दो गज जमीन भी न मिली कुए यार में. The book has a simple thesis. Peace and prosperity in J&K have been undermined by five interconnected forces. First, Pakistan, because Kashmir became the vessel for Pakistan's anger at itself because its founding idea, the two nation theory that Hindus and Muslims can't live together, died at birth, with the majority of Muslims staying back in India during partition. Terrorism wouldn't exist in J&K without Pakistan's terror factories two installment strategy of independence followed by annexation. Second, Cold War geopolitics. Kashmir became a pawn in the Cold War chessboard after India asked the United Nations intervention on 1st January 1948. Despite 13 UN resolutions being passed over the next decade in favor of Pakistan, India refused to compromise its sovereignty while Pakistan embraced America. This partnership and military bases gave Pakistan courage, money, and air cover. The third one is radical Islam. Now, the Sufi Islam sect called Ahle Etkad that dominates Kashmir values ziyarats, that is shrines, while such relics are considered as Buddh Parasti or idol worship by the Wahhabis. Incidentally, I may say that even Hazrat Bal is not so much, uh, you know, uh, liked by the Wahhabis. This partnership, uh, Sheikh Abdullah suggested that the Kashmiri Muslims' religion was a mixture of Rishi worship, Buddhism, Shaivism, and Sufism with a veneer of Orthodox Islam. I am sad that Kashmiriyat has failed at preventing the exodus of Valleys Hindus. However, Kashmiriyat is somewhat authentic, and radical Islam's tools of terror, guns, and religious conservatism are alien. Fourth, fraught federalism. Most other state governments only deal with Delhi pillars of power infrequently. But J&K has found it more challenging to find the Madhyam Marg, that is the middle path, between unitary and federal forces, especially when lasting peace required two decisions which only Delhi could make, abrogating Article 370 and cross border military strikes. Finally, the separatist politics. Article 370 made soft separatism a profitable local political strategy that reaped a harvest of fear, wealth, and dynastic politics. India has created the world's largest democracy on the infertile soil of the world's most hierarchical society because our competitive politics breeds ideas, realism, and compromise. But JNK suffered elite capture and became a closed society, economy, and polity. I pray that Kashmiris now see Pakistan in their own phrase, Lukan Hund, Khun Lukni Mut, that is, smearing the blood of the people on their own faces. I also pray that Pakistan's Awam recognize that its garrison state's narrative of a conspiracy to destroy the Pakistani Qaum, that is the nation, by Hanud, Yahud, and Nasara, that is Hindus, Jews, and Christians, is a military self interest. As historians remind us, in peace, sons bury their fathers. In war, fathers bury their sons. During my decades of service in J&K, Kashmiris bade farewell, saying, Ghashte Kormukh, Khodaya Sawale. That is, go, I have handed you over to God. I offer this precious dua to the next generation of politicians, civil servants, and police officers in J&K. They will do what our generation didn't. Thank you all for listening and coming here.
So I'll just ask a few questions, and if you have, so maybe you can. Why was Article 370 adopted? Maybe you can read the paragraph from your book.
Yes. That was the most vital event. In fact,
You need the
I
mic.
consider that it has been the most historical and constitutionally important decision taken after 1947. And therefore, I would like special constitutional status of J&K. The special constitutional status of J&K was a mistake at best and poisonous at worst. Arguably, it was both, and unarguably, it was a temporary provision. The implementation of Article 370 in 1950 was hardly uncontroversial. I speculate the provision was fueled by Pakistani brutal attack in Kashmir after partition, Sheikh Abdullah's credibility after helping the Indian army defeat Pakistan, and India's mistaken request for UN intervention. Sheikh Abdullah's warm relationship with Pandit Nehru, nourished by a shared rivalry with Jinnah, a dislike of Maharajas, and a preference for socialist economies, may have helped. But this window was small. Nehru approved Abdullah's arrest and diluted Article 370 in 1953, within 3 years of the inception of this Article 370. So it is in that perspective that we have to see uh, now how it has become necessary, especially after the uh, proxy war. Pakistan raised three wars over us, direct wars over Kashmir, and now this proxy war that they have unleashed on Kashmir. All this had led to a very difficult situation of sovereign governance and integrity of India. And therefore, it was necessary that Article 370 was to uh, have a break from uh, the dangerous situation that it was going on.
You seem hopeful about peace in Kashmir. You have your 5 reasons in the book, so maybe you can give us
Actually,
the mic.
now, as
Sorry.
now we are a little sanguine and happy because more than 5 years have been there after the abolition of Article 370, and much development and peace is prevailing, at least in the valley. There may not be full satisfaction to the local people, but the peace is prevailing as far as generally in the valley. So I'm happy that the probability of a Naya Kashmir has risen for 5 reasons. First, the abrogation of Article 370 will prevent J&K's politicians practicing what Kashmiris call Moolan Droth te Patran Sag, that is, watering the leaves while cutting the roots. Security forces can shorten the lives of terrorists, but ending terrorism needs changing the game. Second, cross border strikes by the Indian military create consequences for Pakistan's terror factory. Nobel laureate Thomas Schelling's framing of deterrence as the promise of future pain resonates with me. Third, radical Islam is now accepted as a global problem. In 1965, when I warned visiting FBI and American security officers that terrorists were turning their attention to the West, they dismissed it as self interest trying to internationalize India Pakistan issue. Actually, it was a dramatic rescue of an American who had been kidnapped in the Pahalgam area by us on a helicopter, who revealed all that was
It
to
was
come much
1995.
later. But they didn't accept it fully. They took him away, and later on, of course, what happened in America, we know. Pakistan's rising economic and political weaknesses weakens its garrison state. Finally, India's rising economic and political strength make peace in Kashmir more likely.
So we can do questions. I can continue the conversation, whatever you like. You recently wrote that Pakistan has a choice to make. What is that choice?
Actually, terrorists everywhere are similar. They ignore the laws of war by removing the distinction between combatants and non combatants, peddle falsehood about religion, and legitimize mass murder. Those who have been in the terrorism affected areas would realize how difficult the whole situation becomes with this dangerous combination. Those who kidnap, assassinate, bomb, and maim children, women, and men in the name of Islam do not actually represent Islam. Every terror factory eventually turns on its own masters. I was, sur- I was not surprised that Osama bin Laden was killed by America in Pakistan only 54 kilometers from the last J&K police post in Teethwal area, exactly 27 years after he partnered with America in Afghanistan. I hope Pakistan's Awam shuts down the terror factory and ISI, returns its garrison state to barracks, and embrace real democracy. I know this is easier said than done, uh, and especially with Pakistan's prevailing atmosphere, but उम्मीद पे दुनिया कायम है, and we live in hope that something like this will happen, because Pakistan also doesn't have much of a choice. Where can they go? They have already fought so many wars, and if Kashmir centric idea is the only one that strikes them against India, then you know they have lost the battle. We have integrated Kashmir fully uh, as any part of this country, and therefore physically our security forces and all who have learned and experienced all this. In fact, we have to be confident that our security forces, under difficult job, very difficult job, have done much better than many of the country's security forces, including those from America, when they deal with terrorism through air raids and all kinds of big this thing.
Maybe I can just point out some incidents and then you can take it from there. You know, in the book, I mean, I, some of you may have heard "Katal gaahon se chunkar hamare alam aur niklenge ushaq ke kafile." It's one of my favorite things of poet Faiz Ahmed Faiz, where he says, "The caravan of patriots marches collecting the flags from the hands of martyrs on the battlefield." Actually, the last chapter of the book lists the names of the 1,608 JNK police officers and 511 CRPF officers who were killed since 1989 when he was DG of both those forces. And the book was really written in their memory and honor. But there are a bunch of incidents in here which maybe I can quickly point out, and then some of you have questions. You know, there was a procession carrying dead bodies of terrorists which he had to disperse. And the only arrest that day was one of the dead bodies that got up and tried to run away. The bomb technician told him, "Don't worry about the grenade that was thrown at you because it didn't explode, because it was Chinese made and therefore low quality." This was obviously 1991, before they made iPhones. Begum Abdullah responded to attempts to desecrate Sheikh Abdullah's grave with "Nashukre Kashmiri, mere shohar ne inko izzat bakshi." In 1975, when he was a rookie, he was in the car with Sheikh Abdullah, and Sheikh Abdullah came back to Kashmir as chief minister 22 years after he spent in detention. So in 1953, he was put in jail. He came back in 75 as chief minister. And he was in a car with him, and he said, "Sir, why did you accept exactly what you were offered in 1953 and 1975? I mean, Kashmir would have been so much better off if you hadn't spent these 23 years in jail." So Sheikh Abdullah says to him, "आप अभी छोटे हैं, सियासत सुलह है, सुलह सियासत है. You know, politics is compromise, compromise is politics. In fact, अभी बहुत छोटे हैं, शादी भी सुलह है और जिंदगी भी सुलह है." Farooq Abdullah once suggested to him that pro-Pakistan cheers at a cricket match in Srinagar would make Delhi realize his importance. But I think my favorite is his cheeky description of Farooq Abdullah as the second most powerful man in JNK as chief minister, because the first most powerful man was the last person who spoke to him. We used to call him Khan Ka Kacha. The last person who speaks to him is who gets to decide what he is thinking and what he is doing. I think that it's important to recognize, at least in the book, he asked that question, that one of his favorite books about Bhutto is Born to be Hanged. You know, Bhutto was born to be hanged. He was someday destined to die. And a lot of people in Kashmir believe that Kashmir was born to have violence. And you know, he really doesn't believe that. I think that it's not a problem that has been solved yet, but you know, Aman ki alamat, which is one of his favorite words, is the prospects of peace have really improved in Kashmir because of the 5 reasons. You know, Article 370 going, Pakistan's increasing weakness, India's increasing strength, cross-border strikes, and of course radical Islam, even by people in Pakistan not being sort of in. Is the problem solved in Kashmir? Clearly not. You know, one of my favorite stories is about Deng Xiaoping, where he goes to a construction site and the construction engineer tells him, "Sir, the project is 90% completed." So he says, "Congratulations, only 50% of the work is left." You know, so this is only 10% of the work in Kashmir is left, but this is going to be 50% of the work. And I think the fundamental point is, I, medieval warrior Salahuddin once said, "You have the watches and we have the time." Um, I think Pakistan has to recognize that. And I also hope the people in Kashmir, there's a wonderful letter of Maqbul Butt, which was a terrorist whom he was responsible for catching, who was later hung. But Maqbul Butt writes to his niece after Operation Searchlight in Bangladesh. And he says to him, "The genocide conducted by the Pakistani army, rulers who declare war against their people cannot offer anything to anybody else but injustice." And I think that has been the challenge in Kashmir. But I'll pause here if you have more questions. Otherwise, I have multiple questions for him. Yes, sir. You need a mic or you could scream or hearing. He has a hearing aid. So
Hi, I'm Shom Basu. I'm a journalist. I've been covering Kashmir for a pretty long time, but you have the experience. Long time because when we used to go and ask about 370 of the children and the middle-aged people, I saying, "Wo to gaya." Like the only problem was the 35A, which was contested, and now everything is gone. But there is this the feeling of the foreign terrorist and the homegrown terrorist, which is a problem for the security forces right now. And we are seeing something happening in Jammu side now, and again the South Kashmir and the Titwal area and all, which the government has also opened for tourism. But if as a tourist I go there, the hurdles one has to go through the Indian Army, the intelligence, the RNAW, everything. It's a pretty long work. So there is always this dichotomy between the security forces and the local and the tourist. So it's not seamless as Kashmir we see as of today. But we say to the world that Kashmir is only to the Boulevard Road and the Lal Chowk, but Kashmir is much beyond that. So what do you see the future on those lines? Thank you.
There is no doubt that the main, places of Kashmir, and every politics, every security, and every other development takes place from there. But the fact remains that Kashmiris in the last 5 years, you may have seen, uh, have a stake now in peace. And because of tourism, because of development that is taking place, lots of these people. And Pakistan, actually, our security forces, especially at the borders, are now quite alert. This is the winter season. There is very little infiltration at this point of time. Pakistan will never dare to have a large scale, uh, you know, this infiltration, because after that, uh, lesson that they got uh, after the cross-border terrorism, that they will not take. So, and local terrorists are really actually diminishing at a very fast pace. And the new political government that has come, it is their social, political, religious responsibility to do that. Earlier, the soft separatism, which was actually advocated by most of the politicians, especially the Abdullahs and the Muftis. And this was their competitive politics, which led to a lot of continuation of terrorism. And the local terrorists, when they join them, that becomes even more dangerous. So that one is diminishing very fast. But if some incidents, of course, as was mentioned, the whole situation is not, completely peaceful because of Pakistan. So Pakistan also will not be able to dare send large-scale infiltrators. So our security forces and all are there. As you said that we are opening up the border and other areas of this thing. The locals and others of the border areas will also welcome that, because then there'll be peace, there'll be development, there'll be tourism in those areas. Kashmir is a a very beautiful place all over. It's not Srinagar alone.
If I may just add that Kashmir is an economic infant. You know, carpet weavers get less than people who make roads. There's not a single provident fund player. 50% of people who get a bachelor's degree go on to a master's degree. There is only 200 medical seats. There are only 100. So I think the challenge for Kashmir, obviously, there is no prosperity without peace. You know, and there was a low-level equilibrium that Kashmir was stuck in. Are we going to return to peace in Kashmir in the next 5 years or 10 years as completely normal? Probably not. But it is substantially improved over what it is. And, you know, as Tolstoy said, the most powerful warriors are time and patience. And I think once you change the low level equilibrium that we were stuck in, I think we have a better chance for peace at any time that we have had in the last few decades.
If so, then the negotiations should be carried on because you see, terrorists, for example,
Negotiations with whom?
for example, the separatist leader has seen more prime ministers than than many others. So,
Yeah.
take any
I mean, if you're talking about negotiating with Pakistan, it's kind of hard to decide who to negotiate with in Pakistan. So it's really hard to decide.
it's about the local separatists. Because,
Yeah,
for
I think
example,
there's multiple tracks of progress going on. There's an economic development vector which I am involved with. There is obviously a track two vector. You know, Raghavan is here. He used to be as in Pakistan. I'm happy to have him answer the question. But I think it's a multi-dimensional problem. It'll have multiple vectors. But the biggest thing is when you're stuck in a low-level equilibrium, you have to change that equilibrium, and now we have to be patient. I would say recent incidents of terrorism are all on the army, and the army is trained to handle that. Yeah. Is there another question? Or we're almost done with time. Okay. Just quickly, why did you write this book 25 years after retirement? Why did you write it so long? Why did you wait so long? It's on the other side. I'm sorry, he's 85, he wears a hearing aid, but he's trying. Keep the mic.
Actually, I had three fears. The first came from self awareness initially. And I'm not a good writer. I don't think many civil servants are, despite our confidence in our ability to do everything. Most civil servants, books, and many of my colleagues and friends and all have written, and they are like FIRs or tour reports, which we are used to moving into a narrow path. And I searched the text multiple times to purge the word I, and still don't believe that it conveys that everything was teamwork. Since this is my personal history, so some of it had to come, incidents and all that. Secondly, I was triggered by the overdue abrogation of Article 370 and cross border military strikes that many of us had been asking for since 1990. I must confess that when I was a student in Allahabad University, law student, one of the first research thing that came up was Kashmir as problem of foreign policy. One of my friends wrote it, a professor of political science, and he had said that there can't be any solution except at the ceasefire line if India and Pakistan agree. But that doesn't seem to be. We had never imagined that in our lifetime that would happen. And incidentally, I must confess that the government has been, very rational in awarding, state subject to very many refugees who had come from 1965, 1947, and many other classes who were there for 50 years and all that. And of course, they have also said that those who were allotted to Jammu and Kashmir would also not be discriminated anymore, and they would get the domicile. So they can buy land. Finally, I intuitively grasped the medical wisdom that a post mortem has a certainty that a prescription never can. I worried about hindsight bias. Hopefully, being physically away from J&K for 2 decades has given me the honesty that accompanies the long eye of time. And I must confess that Manish has been largely instrumental in shaping of the book, because otherwise we would have strayed into very many areas. I could have written 800 pages of my experiences over more than 3 decades there. So that was the reason.
So we'll wrap up here. We're out of time. I have a different vantage point of Kashmir. I work in economics and labor markets, but obviously we both are thrilled that our domicile certificates just arrived from Kashmir. But my favorite Hindi poet is Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. Shama Shobhiti us bhujang ko jiske paas garal ho. Only the powerful can be kind, benevolent, and generous. And surely economic power rising in India. Pakistan's GDP is now less than Maharashtra. And I think if we can make Kashmiris attractive to what Bangalore offers, what the rest of India offers, prosperity will follow peace. Thank you.